evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Yana Johnson, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flight Lieutenant Jim Tierney. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Queensland, and RSL Victoria who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool reflection by family and visitors. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's first World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard their record, which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for over a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Adrian Croese. Adrian Croese was born in 1891 to Cornelius and Jane Croese of Mayfield, New South Wales. He grew up in the Newcastle district and went on to work for the Post and Telegraph Department as a linesman. In February 1916, Adrian Croese applied to his employer for permission to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force. Permission was granted and he was allowed leave without pay to serve in the armed forces. Croese was accepted for active service that same month, and after a period of training in Australia, left for active service overseas on the 1st of May 1916 on board the troop ship Benalla. In England, he joined the 35th Battalion, sometimes known as Newcastle's Own, and the men trained for several months before arriving on the Western Front in November 1916. Private Croese endured the bitterly cold winter of 1916 and 1917 in the trenches in Belgium, rotating in and out of the front line. Unlike many, his health did not suffer. He stayed with the battalion throughout the winter as they waited for the warmer months when the active fighting would resume. On the 11th of March 1917, the 35th Battalion was on the front line near the town of Lament. Private Croese was serving as a Lewis gunner and was on duty in the front line in charge of a Lewis gun team. Shortly before 3 o'clock in the afternoon, an artillery duel broke out with both sides firing heavily. One of the shells burst in the trench near Private Croese, wounding him and several of his team. Croese was carried to the medical officer, but a large fragment of shell had penetrated his helmet and he could not be saved. He died shortly afterwards. An officer of the 35th Battalion wrote to Adrian Croese's parents in Mayfield saying, "You will, I know, be to some extent consoled by the knowledge that your son had all through done his part as a man. He was always keen at his work, cool in danger, and most reliable, one of the very best men we had. His mates will feel the loss keenly, as I shall. He always had a smile and a cheerful word, no matter how things were going." Today, Private Adrian Croese is buried in the City Bonjean Military Cemetery at Armentières. He was 26 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Adrian Croese, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you a very good evening.